H.R. 38, the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, drama with GLOCK, and our special guest, Michael Schwartz. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Was. It's been proven that guns are used millions of times every year in America to save lives, but states like New York, Connecticut, and California, just to name a few, have decided that when you cross the border into their state, they want you unarmed, defenseless, and helpless against anything that might occur in their state. They don't care that you may have a concealed carry permit from another state. They think they can subvert the Second Amendment. But the last I checked, self-defense isn't something that stops at the state line. Oh, sure, they want you to visit and spend your money, of course, but they don't want you to enter their state empowered. They don't want you to be able to defend yourself. According to studies, defensive gun uses occur up to 2.5 million times per year in America. This means good people are stopping acts of violence because they, the potential victims, are armed. FBI studies show us that there are approximately 1.2 million violent acts reported every year in America. So this tells us that 2/3 of the potentially violent acts are stopped by armed citizens. So why would blue states want to tip the scales in favor of the bad guys? Well, the answer could be as simple as Democrats needing to make a political point, or as heinous as them protecting the criminals they harbor. Now, President Trump is wise to the fact that several states in the nation do not accept the handgun licenses of other states, which is why he publicly called on Congress to pass H.R. 38, otherwise known as the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. Your driver's license is accepted in all 50 states. Why is your Second Amendment right shut down at the state border? Well, H.R. 38 is a bill that would ensure your concealed carry permit is recognized in every state that allows concealed carry. This is a reasonable solution that respects the rights of lawful gun owners and promotes public safety. Why would blue state legislatures be against such common sense safety measures? As violence erupts across the country by radical left-wing anarchists, foreign terrorists, and gang violence, it's critically important that law-abiding citizens with concealed carry permits are able to exercise their right to self-defense anywhere in the country and not run the risk of becoming an accidental criminal simply because they exercise their Second Amendment right in a state that refuses to abide by the Constitution. So the ultimate goal, of course, is getting constitutional carry, and just like our founding fathers would have expected, which means you wouldn't need a government-issued permission slip to exercise your right to carry in any state. No American should lose a constitutional right simply by crossing a border within the United States. So we're going to talk about this and many other things with... He's not mean. We like to consider him pleasantly angry. Anthony Diso. And also here with us today, Executive Director of San Diego County Gun Owners, Michael Schwartz. Michael.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good. So that's our audience. They love you, by the way, Michael.
Well, the feeling's mutual. I can't tell you how much I love the gun owning community so much. I just think we're absolutely the pillars of society. One of my favorite things about being so involved in Second Amendment activism is you meet truly the best people in society. People that build businesses, people that raise families, people that work hard. Absolute best people. And studies show it. Studies show that people who have CCWs commit fewer crimes as a group than cops, than the general population. We really are. We have something to be proud of. And I just really, really love the gun owner community. I think we're fantastic. No,
that's true. And, all joking aside, I mean, some of the most respectful and responsible people that I've ever met are gun owners. And, it's interesting because when I kind of got into this, the Second Amendment advocacy circles, I guess, whatever you want to call it, I couldn't believe the unity and the and just the overall friendship of all the people. It's just really like we have something in common that's really important too. When you have something in common that's important, people really unite. So that's yeah, great point. So there's so much to talk about here in the firearm world and the world of gun legislation and gun advocacy and all the stuff you guys are doing over there in San Diego. But I wanted to talk about HR 38 and just kind of get your opinion on it. What is it? Explain it in detail a little bit more. Let's dive into this thing so people really understand, what it is.
First off, it's long overdue. That's number one. And Republicans had a crack at this under the first Trump administration and completely dropped the ball. There were a couple different versions back then of how they wanted to accomplish it. And I think that this version that just came out is I think it's the best version I've seen of it. It basically says, look, if you're from a state that has, whatever the concealed carry laws are in your state, then those laws extend to the other 49 states. So if you can carry, concealed in your home state, and you're visiting another state, then all you got to do is prove that you can carry in your state. Maybe that's with a driver's license from your state or a state ID, something like that, or maybe it's with a carry permit, and boom, you're good to go. You can carry in the other 49 states. And that is, I think, the best version I've seen of this kind of reciprocity thing. I like you said, my Second Amendment rights, my right to defend myself, that doesn't stop at the border. It doesn't stop at state lines. I get to defend myself in all 50 states. So finally recognizing that is a good thing. Now it's just a bill, but the makeup of Congress, the makeup of the House of Representatives, the makeup of the Senate, the makeup of the White House right now, this thing has got to pass. This needs to be the defining Second Amendment piece of legislation under this Congress, signed by this president.
So there's so many places we can go with this, because my initial fear with this whole thing was that even if it did pass, that states like my state of New York and your state of California might still just simply decide that they don't want to recognize it. Is that a possibility? And if so, what would we do? Would it just mean more court cases, or how would that work?
Well, part of me wants things to go smoothly, and part of me says, bring it, because we're going to win. Yeah. So go ahead, fight back. I dare you. We'll take you to court. We have the Supreme Court on our side. We have most courts on our side. We have the White House on our side. We have the Department of Justice on our side. Finally, Harmeet Dillon, who's works for the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi, has been fantastic on Second Amendment issues. And she's actually, by the way, from California. She used to be, I think it was the vice chair of the Republican Party out here in California. I've met her a few times in person. She's doing a wonderful job for gun owners when it comes to advocating for gun owners and Second Amendment rights like the civil right they truly are. And I've been very impressed with what she is doing. So part of me hopes they fight. It might be better. We might get even more solid precedent set if they fight, and we fight back and win, because we have the ability to do it. We have the folks on our side. We have history on our side. But I think the more likely scenario is that they would fight back in a little bit more of a roundabout way. And I'll give you an example of that. So the Supreme Court in the Bruin case came out a few years ago and said, hey, you have to issue, if your state issues carry permits, then you have to issue them objectively. They cannot be a subjective thing. Was a part of the case. In other words, it can't be at the whim of a bureaucrat or even the whim of an elected official whether or not you get a permit. Because if your state is saying, hey, in order to exercise your right to keep and bear arms, you have to get a government permit, then okay, you have to make that permit, obtainable, basically.
Yeah.
It can't be subjective. So that was what happened. Well, California said, fine, if we have to issue permits in all 58 counties here in California, 35 or 40 million people, however many people are in California these days, then what we're going to do is we're going to issue those permits slowly. We're going to, some of the counties are taking forever to issue, but we're also going to make it so that every place outside of your home is going to be considered a sensitive area.
Sensitive locations. They did that in New York too.
Yeah, exactly. So now we got to fight that battle. Okay, that was kind of a roundabout way for them to fight back. If HR 38 passes, my thought is that there will be more roundabout ways to fight back, and we're just going to have to file lawsuits, and we're going to have to get the right people elected, and we're going to have to raise people and money. Those are the only two things that work. You need people and money to win this. You got to get the right people elected, and you got to file the right lawsuits, and it's that simple. It's extremely complex, and it takes a long time, but it's that simple.
Well, yeah, the Bruin case that you mentioned in New York started in 2015, and it took 7 years to get that thing through the Supreme Court until 2022. And Anthony and I talk about this all the time. After 8 days after we got the decision, she comes out, Hochul, that's Anthony's girl here. You love her.
Yeah.
The Wicked Witch of the East Coast. She comes out with the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, which was a whole new set of crap.
Yep. She already had it ready.
She had it ready.
She already had it ready. They already had that drawn up. They were ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's useless.
Well, hopefully Lisa Stefanik will clean her clock. But so I get what go ahead, Michael.
But I'll tell you, we're at a point in history. I think it's important to give a little context here. We're at a point in history where, old guys like me, I'm going to be 50 years old here in a couple of months. And what I'm fighting for is, the next generation, to be honest with you. I think that we've already seen major improvements in my lifetime. And we're going to see major improvements, during my lifetime. So that's good. But what we're fighting for a generational change when it comes to the Second Amendment, which means we're going to have to implement laws. We're going to have to implement court decisions to lay the foundation. So that's where we are historically. In other words, we can't win this in one silver bullet or one person getting elected or one lawsuit. We're laying down a foundation so that 100 years from now, 500 years from now, people are able to keep and bear arms and protect themselves effectively because of the work that we're doing right now. Now, I wish that work had been done 50 years ago so I could enjoy every single ounce of it right now. But the reality is we're in a historic fight that people are going to look back on in generations and think, wow, I'm so glad that they did that then. But the other thing is, it really is a never-ending fight. Freedom is a never-ending fight. We can't, it's never going to be a time in the country of the self-governed where we can just go, okay, our job here is done. We're just going to enjoy freedom. We don't actually have to fight for it. We don't actually have to make an effort. So I think knowing that context and reminding yourself, a year, 2 years from now, when things get frustrating, you have some bureaucrat, and you have some elected official, and they're working against you, you think to yourself, what are we ever going to win this thing? You think back to yourself, hey man, we're working on a generational historic change. And frankly, it's not just a marathon, but it's a series of marathons that'll never be over. We just have to continue to work hard. If you think about that context, sometimes it helps you get a second wind, and it helps you realize, okay, you know what? I need to make another donation. I need to sign up for another volunteer thing. I need to help another person get elected, whatever. I need to do the things it takes to win, because that's where we are right now. Yeah. That's where we are in history.
No, yeah, I totally agree, and I really appreciate the optimistic view because we need more of that. Let me get to one of our sponsors real quick, and then I want to pick up again on the generational thing because that's important. But you want to know who's fighting for your gun rights? Gun Owners of America. Now, GOA is the No Compromise Gun Rights Group. I urge you to become a member at gunowners.org. Well, what have they done? Well, GOA secured preliminary injunctions against the ATF pistol brace rule, GOA members submitted a record 85,000 plus comments opposing the ATF's universal registration check rule. They helped enact permitless carry in Nebraska and Florida. GOA secured victories in California, Illinois, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Plus, they won 2 legal victories against the ATF's zero tolerance policy. And GOA fought to overturn Joe Biden's ban on funding hunter education, shooting sports, and archery in schools. So with the constant attacks on our Second Amendment, we often ask ourselves, what can I do about it? This is what you can do. You can become a member at gunowners.org and help us save the Second Amendment. And Michael, you talked about the generational thing, and that is so important. I think about that all the time because I don't want my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, not that I have any yet, but eventually, I don't want them to ask me, or, why didn't you do more? Now here we are living under tyranny in a communist, radical Islamic country, or whatever hell can come to this country because we didn't fight hard enough. And so I agree. I think as much as I hate, because we're here for a short time, man. We're here for 80 to 100 years, I guess, if we're pretty lucky. I don't want to have to spend my entire life fighting for something that I shouldn't have to be fighting for, but I will. And like you, I think hey, I'm here. I'm going to fight for it if I have to, and we're going to achieve what our founding fathers intended, I guess. So, but the generational thing is very important. So I really appreciate what you said about that.
Yeah, well, speaking of generational, just to talk about your sponsor real quick, Gun Owners of America. Gun Owners of America, same founder as Gun Owners of California. It was a guy named H.L. Richardson. And that organization, founded back in the 70s, is the example of generational fighting. His kids and their kids continue to run Gun Owners of California, help with Gun Owners of America. And they've been fighting for decades. And they've gotten a lot of things done. We're very thankful for Gun Owners of America and Gun Owners of California.
Yeah.
They've done amazing things. But yeah, I got to tell you, Dan, I think about moving to another state where they have good gun laws, which, by the way, the states that have good gun laws are starting to, it's fewer and far further between than it used to be. I mean, in the 90s, I remember people from California moving to Oregon and Washington because they had good gun laws. And now that's unthinkable.
Right.
Arizona and Nevada are starting to implement horrible gun laws and having to fight back. There are a lot of states that used to be good, and now they're unfortunately, the California infection is spreading. But I think about these other states, moving to other states where you don't have to fight. You have good people and good laws and good elected officials, and I truly wonder, what do you do all day? If you're not fighting for gun laws, what do you do all day?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing that kind of annoys me is, sometimes I'll speak at, gun clubs and things like that. We'll talk on the topic of, and what I found, and I'm not saying this is about all older gun owners, but a lot of the old timers are just unwilling to put their neck out there and put any effort. Well, I'm not gonna get involved. I don't need to. I'm tired of fighting for my guns, and all I need is my shotgun, and I'll do my hunting and all this. I don't care, whatever. I'm too old for that stuff. And I think to myself, well, how selfish is that? You just because you're old, and it's not going to affect you. It's going to affect generations to come. I think we have, and you nailed it, we have this kind of inherent responsibility, whether we like it or not. And I don't always like it. It takes time and money and effort, but I do it because it's important. And it just annoys me that there's some people who are just unwilling to put in any effort to preserve our Second Amendment. Right. Anthony, anything?
Well, it's like up here, gun owners don't really vote around here. They don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
We've said that before. They
Yeah.
don't go to the booth and fight for anything.
Yeah.
Oh, I got my gun, so I'm fine.
Right. But yeah, you're not gonna be around for very long. So what do you care? You know,
Exactly. But that's selfish. I
but
mean,
it's future generations.
with the lease coming up, they're going to need every vote.
Yeah.
And they need to get off their butt and get out there and stop being selfish.
Yeah.
I agree. I've seen elections won. You know, we focus on local elections. You know, we weigh in on state elections too. But where I saw a hole in the front line is that there really wasn't a lot of focus on these local elections, school boards, city councils, county board, sheriff, and that's where state and local or state and federal people come from. When you run for Congress or you run for state assembly or whatever, you're usually coming from a city council or a school board somewhere. And I've seen elections that were decided by, 4 votes, where if not for 4 votes,
Wow. Yeah.
then we would have had an extremist anti-gun person in office. But instead, we showed up and we moved the needle and we walked neighborhoods and we made donations and we told our friends and family who to vote for. And the person only won by 4 votes.
That's incredible.
So it was, so you can move mountains, but, not sitting on the couch and complaining and, I've tried nothing and it didn't work. Okay. But at the very least, if you've given up and you don't want to fight, at the very least, cut a check, to whoever.
Yeah.
You Gun Owners of America, whatever, some local group, put a couple of bucks in the war chest of people who are going to fight and are going to make a difference.
Not only that, but the court cases are expensive. It takes a lot of money to fight back against these unconstitutional gun laws. They need the money for that.
It really, truly, it is expensive. It takes a lot of time and money. If people ask me like, well, hey, why don't we file a lawsuit? By the way, there's a long list of lawsuits that need to get filed in a long list of states. And people come to me and say, hey, why don't I'll be a plaintiff in this lawsuit if you file this lawsuit. And I always say, okay, we'll file that lawsuit, but we need $500,000 in 10 years of your time. And then we can file that lawsuit. And I just don't, which by the way, I don't mean to be negative to people who want to jump in and but I just, people I think are surprised to hear just how expensive and just how much time it takes when it comes to lawsuits. And it's not the only tool in our toolbox.
Well, just go and look at the trajectory or the path of the Bruin case itself and follow that through the courts. It just winded its way through the court system for years. And, there's lawyers behind all that stuff that are, hey, they get a good hourly rate, let's say. So yeah, you're right. It's expensive. I wanted to get to one with respect to HR 38. I wanted to get to one more thing before we have to go to break, and I wanted to get your comment on this. My friend Cam Edwards, and I'm sure you know who Cam is.
Sure, what a great guy.
Yeah, Cam's a great guy, and he's a good guy to know. But he's also writing a lot of great stuff. So he writes for Bearing Arms, and just kind of off topic. I did his show when he was on NRA TV. He had his show on NRA TV. I remember years ago doing him interviewing me on his show. So I've known Cam for a long time now. He wrote an article here in Bearing Arms just on November 18th, and the heading was Police groups urge Congress to reject national concealed carry reciprocity unless it's for cops. So,
of course. Right? Of course.
So it goes on to say the Fraternal Order of Police and the International Association of Police Chiefs have officially come out in opposition to H.R. 38, the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act of 2025, urging Congress in a letter to reject the bill if it comes up for a vote on the House floor. And Cam went on to say, I'm not really surprised to see the Fraternal Order of Police come out against H.R. 38. And given the connections to Bloomberg and the Joyce Foundation, which I'm not too familiar with, he says he fully expects the IACP to oppose the bill. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
I could say a lot of things about that. And I got to say, the first thing I want to say is when I'm about to criticize cops. And when I criticize cops, I'm talking about the organizations in general. I'm talking about the departments, the department heads. You might be a cop, you might know a cop who's extremely pro Second Amendment. So please don't think I'm talking about every single police officer who, has a badge and cuffs and a gun. But what I am talking about are the organizations that they are a part of, and we need the good cops that to fight back, because these organizations, we've learned a long time ago that law enforcement are not pro Second Amendment. Law enforcement agencies, law enforcement organizations, they are not Second Amendment organizations. They do not have your best Second Amendment needs in anywhere near their priorities.
Right.
They prioritize police officers. They prioritize their pay and retirement. They prioritize whatever their work conditions are. They are not pro Second Amendment, and it just never ceases to amaze me what sellouts the law enforcement agencies are. Typically what happens out here is they make some big, huge, horrible anti-gun law, and they immediately exclude police officers. And these big, bad, brave police officers tuck their tail and turn the other way and say, well, gee, it doesn't affect us. And they retreat and scurry, and it's really gross. And then you talk to, individual law enforcement, they kind of go, yeah, I don't really know anything about my union or my association or anything. I don't really know, but I don't agree with them. Okay, well, fine. You don't agree with them. You need to go change, because they're taking money out of your paycheck typically. Yeah. They're representing you. They're telling the entire nation or state or both that, hey, this is what you believe. And if you disagree, it is your responsibility to make sure that they understand that. And they kind of sheepishly go, well, gee golly gosh, it just doesn't affect us, so we're going to stay out of it.
That's just it.
You're right. Staying out of it. You actually are fighting against these laws. So it's unbelievable to me. We need to completely reject law enforcement organizations and whatever advocacy they're attempting until they start, politics is give and take. Until they make a real move to support our Second Amendment rights, we need to make a real move to not support their retirement and their pay and whatever selfish crap that they need, because they don't care about your Second Amendment rights.
It goes back to the same concept as the old time gun owner who doesn't get out there and voice his opinion on the Second Amendment. It doesn't affect me, so I don't care, situation. And that's just lazy. And that's, this stuff takes work. It takes effort. But it's our responsibility to handle these things and make sure we defend, right? I mean,
well, that made no sense what he said, because they already have federal arrest. They can go anywhere they want with their gun in the United States and on a plane. Police officers, that's already been passed, so they can go wherever they want. So what he said doesn't make any sense. The fraternal order, obviously he's stupid, because he can carry wherever he wants.
Well, the cops can.
Cops can.
Yeah.
But we can't.
Now, is that true? Can cops carry?
Yes, they can. They can go anywhere they want.
But they don't want everybody
it.
else to.
Right.
At least this particular
Most
organization,
of them are like
fraternal.
that.
So, I do know a lot of police officers.
Police unions are crooked. They are. I've been in one.
By the way,
crooked.
Not just cops, not just active duty cops, retired ones too.
Yeah, retired cops can go anywhere they want to.
I think you have to be a cop for 10 or 12 years, something like that. And then you can get a carry permit where you can carry all over the place.
Yeah.
And you're retired. You might be retired and you're selling insurance, or you're, I don't know, doing some other kind of job. But because you're a retired cop, all of a sudden, you're a little bit more equal than the rest of us.
Well, it's contradicting too, because there have also been some reports where there were police officers interviewed, and they said that the majority of police officers interviewed wanted people to have concealed carry because they can't be there all the time to stop. So I think you have a split mentality among law enforcement officers. That's what it sounds like to me.
I agree. I think, and that's kind of what before I started down my road there, that's what I was saying, is that I do believe and know there are a lot of law enforcement officers who aren't anti-Second Amendment, who
Yeah.
aren't anti-concealed carry, and they're not anti-CCW. There are a lot of great ones, but you can't hide behind your, well, gee golly, that's the union, you know, what can I do? Or, hey, that's my leadership. You guys got to fight back. They are representing you. You have to fight back. There's just
Absolutely.
no excuse anymore. You know, recently they just passed a law here in California that in effect bans all Glocks and everything even similar to a Glock, and they exempted law enforcement. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, if you're law enforcement, you can still buy a Glock, but I can't.
Right.
What about your friends and family and loved ones? What about your wives or spouse or whatever? That person can't defend themselves, you know, or what are you going to do? Are you going to buy a firearm because you're a cop and then give it to your spouse, but screw your neighbor who's not a law enforcement officer? It's not right.
No.
They really need to get into this fight. They need to, I should say, they're in this fight. They need to get out into the right side of this fight.
Yeah. No, I agree. And there's a lot more we can talk about that. As a matter of fact, when we come back from break, I want to talk more about GLOCK. You mentioned GLOCK. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll come back with the GLOCK drama and a lot more with Michael Schwartz from San Diego County Gun Owners. Stick around right after this.
The Cali Key removes your AR from the definition of an assault weapon. It lets you keep your rifle with all its features, avoid registration hassles, and transport in hostile jurisdictions. The Cali Key also lets you hunt in jurisdictions like Pennsylvania and enhances long-range precision shooting. Cali Key's expert legal opinions empower informed decisions, and sales help grassroots Second Amendment organizations. Cali Key is your tool to keep and equip your AR, empower yourself, and defend your civil rights.
Our founding fathers saw them coming over 200 years away. That's why they wrote the Second Amendment. Join us in the fight to preserve your gun rights and stop unconstitutional gun control. Gun Owners of America is the country's only no-compromise gun rights organization. Not only do we inform and educate, but we bring the fight to court and win. Your God-given right to keep and bear arms is our top priority. Become a member today and help us take back America. Join us at gunowners.org.
All right, we're back with Michael Schwartz from San Diego County Gun Owners, and we've been talking a lot about HR 38 and a lot of the stuff around it. Michael, let's wrap up HR 38 with any final comments, and then I want to move on to GLOCK. Anything else you have on HR 38?
HR 38 needs to pass. I think that if you're in office right now, if you're in, you know, the House of Reps or the Senate, this needs to pass. And if, you know, Republicans have been telling us for years, they always tell us that they're our friends, and, you know, for the most part, they're certainly better than Democrats, you know. But the reality is they don't do a whole lot for us. That's a lot of lip service. So this thing needs to pass. They have the political makeup for it to pass. But if it doesn't, if they drop this ball again and we don't get CCW reciprocity, I don't think any Republican in office right now who drops this ball should get reelected, period. We need to, you know, throw them out, you know, and start over, because if they're not going to stand up for our Second Amendment rights, you know, then what good is it having them there? So yeah. We need this to pass. I think that this is a very good piece of legislation to rally around, especially going into an election year. People that fight back, they need to be thrown out, you know, and we need to find somebody to replace them. People that support it, they need to be supported. But ultimately, this thing needs to pass and act as a litmus test for November. And it's not going to get done if you just wait and watch. You know, email, call, tell your rep, tell your senator how you feel about this, how important it is. You know, this isn't just for folks who have a neat hobby. We're trying to allow people to defend themselves, not just in their hometown, but when they travel as well. This is about your self-defense, your safety. This will make people safer. This will help them defend from people who are attacking them. It absolutely has to pass, but we need to help them get it over the finish line.
And, you know, and not only that, although all that stuff is super important, not only that, what this would do is it would prevent people from becoming felons just by crossing over the border. There was a woman named Shanine Allen, and I've written articles about her and stuff, and she's pretty well known, but she was from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. And she crossed over into New Jersey with her licensed, legal Philadelphia handgun, got arrested for a traffic infraction, and she faced felony charges. She didn't do anything wrong. It's just the fact that Jersey didn't accept Pennsylvania's permit. So,
yeah.
Anyway, we can move on from this. I wanted to get to the Glock drama. Glock has been at the center of controversy, and it hasn't been because they did anything wrong. In fact, strangely enough, it's the fact that they didn't do anything, at least not until recently, which is what they're being blamed for. So this is from an article by my friend Tom Knighton over at AmmoLand, or Bearing Arms, I'm sorry. And one of the things Tom says, and I want to get your comment on this, Michael. It says, in particular, they didn't redesign their firearms, so a device... Now, you got to follow this because this is interesting. They didn't redesign their firearms, so a device they never made and is illegal to possess couldn't be put on the guns that were never designed to use it. The lawsuit has specifically accused Glock of violating an Illinois state law and a related Chicago City ordinance by selling semi-automatic pistols that can be converted to fully automatic weapons by illegally installing an aftermarket switch known as an autosear, which is not even made or sold by Glock. So somehow Glock becomes responsible. Explain this to me.
There's so many different levels to this story. It's so odd, and I got to tell you, some of the things that the antis have done are, leave me scratching my head. Some of the things that Glock has done leaves me scratching my head. But basically, yeah, it's completely ridiculous. Now, Glock originally, they came out with the Glock 17, and then they had the Glock 18. The Glock 18 is just a Glock 17 that had a switch. Now, that's not what we're talking about, but the original plan for a Glock was to be have a full auto option, but the reality was there just wasn't a market for it. They were trying to steal market share from Uzis and MAC-10s back in the 80s, and it just didn't take off. So what happened was some folks recently, especially with the invention of 3D printers, came up with a switch that would convert it to full auto. Now, full auto Glocks are totally impractical. Yeah. I've seen anti-gun groups that say they can't find a single example of a full auto Glock being used in the commission of a crime. I'm not so sure that, they've kind of set these parameters that we should automatically just be mad that a Glock can be converted to full auto, or that somehow full auto is innately evil. I'm not so sure that that's even true, but they've kind of defined the box that we're playing in here. And I think part of me says, hey, so what? What if it can be converted full auto? You still have to go through the steps. There's still laws that have to be followed. But the reality here is, this has nothing to do with Glock. I mean, there really aren't a whole lot of firearms that can't be engineered to be full auto. I mean, I just visited the Browning Museum in Ogden, Utah, and one of his first automatic firearms was a lever action that basically had this big plate in front of the muzzle and would work the lever to reload it using the gases from the end of the muzzle, very similar to a modern AK. I mean, there really isn't a firearm out there that, if engineered enough, can't be engineered to be made, either auto if it's not, or full auto. And, so this whole thing's ridiculous. I mean,
well,
it's kind of
You know what it
Minority
is?
Report saying, hey, if they intend to do something bad, then we're going to blame the manufacturer. And that's ridiculous.
You know, here's the thing. It's just another way that the anti-gun lobby groups and stuff can attack the manufacturer. You know, they've always been going after the manufacturer, but luckily we've had the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act to protect them. But they did this with Remington, I think, in Connecticut, right? Wasn't it the same kind of thing? They're always trying to sue the manufacturers because they can't always get around the Second Amendment. So they figure they're going to cut the head off the snake. So suing Glock, one of the biggest, firearm manufacturers, they probably think that that's going to tarnish the whole Second Amendment community. I don't know. That's just my thought. But the idea that you could sue a company for manufacturing something that people are taking a completely different product and adding to it. I mean, how are they responsible? That's like, Chevy Camaros, they don't make them with 1,000 horsepower, but I could make a Camaro have 1,000 horsepower by taking aftermarket parts and rebuilding and making modifications. Am I a felon for doing it? I can even take off the emissions stuff. I can take out the catalytic converter and all that stuff. I'm breaking the law technically, right? Am I a felon? Why is it that, it's such a big deal with firearms? I think it's just because they want to go after the firearm manufacturers. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no question. That's what it is. I'll tell you what the other side does better than us. The anti-gun groups get together and they say, hey, this is our focus for the foreseeable future. And they pick one thing and everyone goes after it. Yeah. And, their attacks are full of hyperbole and, think of the children and, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. And they do this from every angle, every organization, every advocate, every news story, every press release has to do with this one thing. A couple of years ago it was ghost guns.
Oh, right.
Well, now it's these GLOCK switches, and they concentrate on that one thing for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years, until they have, gotten every possible ounce of progress out of that one thing, and then they move on to something else.
Yeah.
So when you listen to their messaging, it's completely insincere. It's ridiculous. Part of the problem is a lot of the elected officials, they're happy to compromise. They don't have a backbone to stand up against and say, hey, this is ludicrous, go pound sand, come up with something better than this. Yeah. But yeah, the idea that, hey, we're going to take a product that doesn't exist, that isn't sold on shelves, that you have to make or buy from a criminal, and we're going to put that product on a legal product that has nothing to do with the illegal product, and we're going to make it illegal. I mean, it's law after law after law they're breaking, but they just want to completely get rid of the entire line of Glocks and even Ruger and a couple other manufacturers because of this. It's completely ridiculous. Well, but they're going to squeeze every ounce of success out of it they possibly can.
Yeah, every ounce of media time they can get. We're going to come back to this real quick in 1 second. One more I want to show you one of our sponsors here. This is a really cool device. This device, the Cali Key, removes your AR from the definition of an assault weapon. So did you know that when the so-called assault weapon ban lists are created, they exclude manually operated bolt-action firearms? So just by dropping the Cali Key into your direct impingement AR in place of your semi-automatic BCG, you'll have a bolt-action rifle that falls outside the definition of an assault weapon. So you don't need to do anything else. So give the Cali Key a look, because with it, you could retain all your rifle's features, avoid registration complications, revive your black rifle sales if you're an FFL, regain the ability to do private party transfers, legally transport across hostile jurisdictions, hunt with your AR in areas like Pennsylvania, enhance long-range precision and quiet or suppressed shooting. Cali Key has state-specific expert attorney opinions on its website and supports grassroots Second Amendment organizations with its sales. Cali Key's mission is to empower customers and claw back our civil liberties. So go to calikey.com and use the discount code LOADED. All right, so back to this Glock thing, Michael. Now, Glock is recently creating a whole bunch of new models, aren't they?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And this is, like I said, some of the things that Glock have done, some of the things they've done, I don't know what to make out of it. Now, so let me kind of go through it. You know, back in the spring, they actually announced that they were going to discontinue a lot of their models, and it didn't really make a lot of news, didn't make a lot of waves. We covered it on our podcast on Gun Owners Radio. We talked about it, but there wasn't a whole lot of information. They just said, hey, we're going to discontinue these models. Well, then a couple of months ago, they took it a step further. But in the meantime, a lot of lawsuits started against Glock, like we said. In California, there was actually a law passed, AB 1127, that said if you're manufacturing a firearm that has a cruciform bar in the trigger mechanism, which is just a piece of metal that's a part of the trigger mechanism that's in the shape of a cross, and it can be easily converted, you know, using regular household tools, you know, not specialized equipment, to full auto, then it cannot be sold in California unless you're a cop. Then it can be sold to you. Now, the interesting thing about
cops,
that,
right?
just to talk about that law, is, well, if it can be easily converted to be fully automatic and it doesn't have a cruciform, you know, bar in it, then that's okay. Number one, and number two, it can still have the cruciform bar as long as it can't be converted. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense the way that they wrote the law. It really, truly, it didn't have anything to do with safety. It had everything to do with Glock.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And a lot of times these people writing the actual laws don't know enough about the mechanics of firearms to be talking about this stuff. So it really just annoys me, and especially then you get down to the local level and you get local politicians talking about stuff just that they have no business even talking about. You know, when it comes to, you know, the automatic versus semi-automatic, they most of the time have no idea what they're talking about. The so-called assault weapon, they can't define it, but yet they want legislation to ban it. All sorts of stuff that we've seen over the years of these people creating legislation who have no business in that area because they don't have any scope of knowledge.
Well, they were either incompetent or it was either incompetence or malfeasance. And I think it could have been incompetence. They didn't know what they were talking about, but I think it was malfeasance. I think that they said, hey, we're going after Glock. And the one thing that really, truly we can make Glock specific is this cruciform part. So therefore, we're going to put this part in there.
Yeah.
We're going to make
find a way, right?
All the newscasters, they're going to act as if a cruciform bar in a gun is the worst thing that's ever happened to our public safety or whatever. Meanwhile, it's you know, it's a tiny little metal piece, you know, inside the firearm that, you know, helps it work. It's just a mechanical piece of metal.
Sure. And I remember. Go ahead.
I was just kidding. So they passed this thing. And then Glock said, okay, we're getting rid of our Gen 3s, our Gen 4s, our Gen 5s. We're not going to manufacture any of these anymore. We're just going to put out this new
Gen V,
which I think is a Roman numeral 5. They haven't been totally clear on that. And it's changed, and everybody was anticipating, well, what's going to happen? I thought they were going to completely get rid of the cruciform part. I thought, because it doesn't have to be cross-shaped. They can actually make the same thing in a different shape. And I thought they were going to, you know, kind of outmaneuver these laws and lawsuits by doing that. Turns out the Glock V is a Gen 5 that has been slightly modified. And I just don't understand. It doesn't appear that they're going to be able to continue to sell in California. It doesn't appear that they've dodged any of these lawsuits. I just don't understand what's going on with Glock. I don't know what they're thinking or doing. And it's weird. You have a bunch of people out there, a bunch of gun people who are mad, like, they bent the knee and, Glock sold out and, but I mean, I'm not sure they did. I'm not sure if they did or didn't. I mean, part of me's, I think there's a case to be made that they didn't sell out at all because they barely modified their Gen V or their Glock Model V. But then part of me is kind of mad that they didn't because we're no better off than where we started. And in fact, there was a lawsuit that was filed by Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition and NRA here in California. And I think this Model V that Glock put out completely took the wind out of the sails of that lawsuit. So I can't figure out what's going on and why they did what they did.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. You're taking all the, Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5, right? You're taking that off the market and you're coming out with this new one at the same time, getting hit with all these lawsuits. I mean, it looks like that's what they're trying to do, no?
Yeah, well, honestly, that's what they put out the message that, hey, we're going to revamp our Glock and it's going to help us, get through the lawsuits and the laws that are being passed, whatever. Honestly, I think that I'm totally speculating, but I think that I think that the top, a year or 2 or 3 years ago, the top of Glock said, hey, we need to clean up our product line. So let's get rid of some of the versions that aren't selling.
Yeah.
Let's stop with the multiple generations. Like let's do a major change that still maintains what people love about Glock, but makes things easier or whatever. Plus they had like their copyrights and whatever. They were starting to expire and people are making Glock clones. I think that they did this for business reasons and then floated it out there as if they were doing it for legal reasons. And I just don't, I think it's just all messy and weird. I don't think that they successfully accomplished anything positive, except that they've cleaned up their inventory
kind of thing.
They offer, but now they can't offer it. Like, for example, in the state of California, that buys more Glocks than 49 other states. You know what I mean? Like, there are a ton of gun buyers here in California, but now we're not going to be able to buy a single Glock. So I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I wonder if these companies look at it and cut their losses by not being able to sell to 1 or 2 states, and they figure that that's going to be easier and more cost effective to just eliminate those states, and maybe that's what the gun grabbers are trying to achieve. But Michael, we only got a couple minutes here left, and I wanted to get to one really important thing before we let you go. You guys at San Diego County Gun Owners are celebrating your 10th year anniversary. Is that right? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. I'm really, really proud. San Diego County Gun Owners, we're a political organization. We focus on local folks, getting them elected on these local boards and councils. And we're now 10 years old. This was an idea that was started by a few people 10 years ago, and it's grown and grown and grown. We have a really amazing success record. For a little group, a little regional group, we're just San Diego County. There's about 3.5 million people in San Diego County. We're one county in one state, and it's the most anti-gun, or arguably the most anti-gun state in the union. And we've still done things. We have a track record of success.
Awesome.
We have 4,000 plus members. We've actually gotten people elected. There are people who are in office right now that would not be in office if not for San Diego County Gun Owners. We've raised money for causes. We've been a part of lawsuits. I'll bet you didn't know this. In the Ninth Circuit, only one time in the history of the Ninth Circuit has there been a lawsuit filed to get rid of a gun law that actually went the distance and got rid of a gun law. It's only been one time, and it was the Nguyen case where the 1 in 30, you can only buy one gun every 30 days in California, and that law got struck down. And with the help of Firearms Policy Coalition, which we're very thankful for, that was our case. San Diego County Gun Owners and our members were plaintiffs on that case. So in our short 10 years, we've gotten people elected, we've raised money, we've trained people, we've got more gun owners to be able to carry, we've had CCW, so we've had success after success. And the only lawsuit in Ninth Circuit Court history that's actually struck down a gun law in the Ninth Circuit.
That's awesome.
Is, thanks to a lawsuit that we were plaintiffs on. So
that's
I'm
excellent.
very proud of the people of San Diego County gun owners.
And you guys also have Gun Owners Radio. And where else can people find you? Where do you want them to go to learn more or to just get some of your content and stuff like that?
Sure. GunOwnersRadio.com. Go to GunOwnersRadio.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can watch clips every day. You can watch our full show every Sunday from 5 to 7 California time. You can find San Diego County gun owners, Inland Empire gun owners, and Orange County gun owners, and our women's program, Not Me California. You can find all that at GunOwnersRadio.com. And I'd love to have some of your listeners check us out as well. I'm so grateful that you have me on your show. I love your show. You do such a great job. And if any of your listeners are jonesing for more Second Amendment, then I'd love to have you as a viewer as well.
Well, we appreciate having you on, and thanks so much, Michael. We'll definitely have to do it again because there's so much more we could talk about. So, but thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the show on Rumble, on YouTube, all our social media platforms, all our podcast platforms. You can also catch the show at Spreely, Spreely.com, the Spreely Network. And don't forget, the Second Amendment is not a privilege. It's your right.